Hi everyone, I'm Carly of Gnarly Carly Gaming, and today I'm going to be talking about the new 1 to 5 player game, Weirdwood Manor, that's coming to Kickstarter tomorrow. In Weirdwood Manor, players will be working cooperatively to protect the haunted home that is Weirdwood Manor, as well as Lady Weirdwood, who rules the home, from a fey monster and its scarab minions that have invaded. The manor itself, the board, is actually what drew me to the game originally. I first saw it at Gen Con last year when they were showcasing the game ahead of the Kickstarter. My friend Dustin and I were basically wandering the exhibition hall, and I stumbled upon this, and I was just so enchanted as I saw the board start to move. And with it, shifting corridors move around it, giving access to certain new pathways in the game and closing off others. That is what initially drew me in, but there's so much more here than I even saw at surface level. So just how does this game play? How is the funky room weaving unfold in this game? Well, the gameplay is actually quite simple on surface level, though the strategy is deep. On each player's turn, what they will do is they'll have a hand of cards corresponding to their health value. So right now, most players will start at 3 health, so I'll actually have only 3 cards in hand. And on my turn, I will play a card. This card will have a bunch of different actions I can do. Sometimes it's resource acquisition, sometimes it lets me move through the manor wherever I can reach, or attack or defend, things like that. Very basic adventure-y things. But the first thing I have to do is decide where to put this card. Each game board has slots on the top of it corresponding to morning, afternoon, evening, and nighttime actions. No card is associated with any particular time slot. However, you have to choose where you want it to be, and doing so will actually advance the time of day. This game has an abundance of ways to lose. Every monster you fight, and there's 3 different monsters in the core game, will carry their own way to beat you up. But notably, if Lady Weirdwood is ever defeated or corrupted in the case of one monster, or simply if all players run out of time. You have 12 days, and advancing this time is a resource in and of itself. So if we're starting in the morning of the game, if I move the game board back to morning, and if I play an action in the morning slot, I will basically only advance to the next morning space of the board. There's 3 for each morning, afternoon, time, and day. But I always have to advance. If I was at the end of the morning and I played one into the morning slot, a whole day will have to pass in order to basically be able to play in that space. So managing where I want to play these to best use our time is a key part of it. And what that will also do is, because that time track is on that inner ring of the board, is it moves all those hallways naturally as we start to take our turns. The outer ring also has shifting hallways, but those actually count our days for us. So as soon as I make it through a full day, this will shift. And now day 2 is in the aligned spot with the day, but also our new corridors are opened up, and some are newly closed off. To add to the chaos of just where do I put my action card, if you line up 2 action cards that have matching half symbols on their sides, you can unlock a special bonus that will exist as long as these cards are up here. They'll only wipe once all of my card slots are full. And so choosing which action card to play is actually the least difficult, somewhat, part of it. More so where to play it and how to combine it with future card plays, and how we're using this time mechanic and opening new rooms, and where do I want to go and what do I want to get to, and every room has its own special abilities. There's a lot of depth here. There's a lot to think about in each turn. None of it is mechanically difficult. It's easy to explain to new players what you're doing, but on your turn, that's what you do. You play a card, you'll do the actions on it, and you'll advance time, and then at the end of your turn, the monster will get a chance to go. Each monster has their own deck of cards. It'll tell you on the back of the card roughly what they're going to do. This can be various things. It can have them move, it can have them attack, spawn more minions, things like that. But the back of the card will always give a hint as to what's happening. So this one, for instance, has 3 times, because time will march forward 3 spaces when he takes his action, and also gives you the hint that it's move-oriented. So the monster is probably going to try to head somewhere. Maybe I want to try to block them off. Sometimes if you block them off, other things happen if they can't move and want to. A frustrated monster, in the case of the Chaos Ogre who I have out, will sometimes destroy rooms. But that is really the true landscape of a basic turn, is playing a card, advancing a time based on where you put it, doing any of the actions associated, doing the monster turn, and moving on to the next player, rotating through until either time is up so you lose, or you've defeated the monster, or they've defeated you. So that is the basic structure of a turn and what the core of game flow will be. What a game turn will often look like, and what all these actions will consist of, is mostly moving and collecting resources and preparing to fight, or fighting itself, or defending itself. And what this looks like is basically whenever you move, you can take your character pawn and move to any place in the labyrinth that you can access. So in some spaces you might have closed off pathways, so this character is actually almost fully blocked in this way, but they can go out this way and maybe head to a different room that they want to access. And so when you go to a room, you can do its special abilities. Some of it will help you restore health, gain experience that can be utilized on these experience tracks to unlock special abilities. It can get you companions that give you basically an extra card slot on your board where you can slot any time of day, a very useful thing, as well as special abilities on those cards. You can acquire resources to try to upgrade your dice, because that will lead me to battling itself. I was really put off at first by the notion of an attack system that had to do with dice rolling. I'm much more of a Euro-centered girl, and dice rolling just feels a little too random for me, and it just isn't necessarily a satisfying feeling in determining outcomes often. But what's interesting in this game is you will actually collect resources to forge more dice. In the beginning of the game, you only start off with one balance die, one blue balance die as your starter die for everybody, and that gives you kind of equal shot at missing, hitting, defending, crit miss, crit hit, and it's an okay die, but it's not going to be enough to go up against a monster. Even the Chaos Ogre, who's the basic one, will start with 2 defense die, a balance die, and a specialized attack die. And one of the things you can do with resources in this game is forge yourself new die. So I can decide, okay, I'm going to spend min, which is basically mana in this game, and some knowledge, and forge an attack die for myself. Now if I'm going into battle, I can hit harder, and I'll still have that balance die to hopefully defend myself if I need, or I'll try to hit and leave. And so those are different options that you have. And so a lot of this game is the suspense leading up to the big battle. Do I want to clear out some of the minions so they don't cause too much damage before we could have this big battle? And then I can get experience from that and boost myself on these experience tracks. Do I want to forge new dice to get ready? When do I actually go for it? Because as time ticks on, the monster is only getting stronger too. And so there's this whole, how should we all do this together? Where are you headed? How can we combo with these rooms? This room lets me portal to another room, so maybe I can go do that and then come here and then still get there and keep Lady Weirdwood safe, or go get the monster. And so it's all about biding your time and building up and ultimately trying to face off before you run out of time. Because you can't just do it all. You'll never get to that penultimate point where you're like safe to battle. You really have to push it, but strategically so. And that strategy is way bitier than I think this game looks on surface level. And so I guess that blurs right into my thoughts about the game. I think it's surprisingly sophisticated is the best way to put it. And I don't want to call it a mistake, because I actually find the art, especially like the acrylic standees that come with the game and the monsters and the cartoonish style, really charming. But it's based on a series of stories for children, ages 6 to 12, and the game is 14 plus. So I've said it before in other games, but some games are deceptively cute. I think this one is deceptively childish. Gameplay is not simple. I'm not playing this with a 6-year-old, and it can be brutal in some ways too. And I like that as a gamer. I want that in a co-op game. I want something that's hard and strategic, and that I have to really learn the environment and think crucially about space and time and resources and bonuses that I'm playing between cards. There's so many layers of thought that can go in here. It isn't completely AP breaking. I only have so many things I can do, but there's depth here that I think is really, really satisfying and strategic, but it's not childish. And so I worry somewhat with this game that folks are going to look at the cover and look at the art and think it's a family game, and either get it because they think it's a family game or not get it because they think it's a family game. And so if you're like me and intrigued by that haunted theme and like it, but we're worried that this would be too simplistic to endure in a collection, it isn't. It isn't simplistic. There's depth in decision making, there's depth in different monsters that you can play with, and variability between games based on the asymmetry of characters and their special abilities and ways the rooms and layouts are. There's combos I saw in one game that couldn't exist in another game because the room layout was different. There's a lot here, and so I think deceptively childish, but quite good and punchy in terms of a new kind of co-op game, in my opinion. Another reason I think it's great is it takes almost no time to learn. It's a game with high strategy that I'll want to play with my strategy co-op gamers, but I can teach it to them in minutes, and we can be off and running and playing. The core concepts are simple. They didn't overclutter it with a million of upkeep bits or things to do. The game flows itself and presents challenges itself in a really inventive way. I think the time mechanic is incredibly interesting and really does wonders to give the haunted weaving house vibe that you want in this kind of thematic game. I will say what this game does not provide, if you think it does, because I thought it might, is more of a narrative adventure. If I was to implore the Weirdwood crew of anything, it's to give more flavor text to the cards, especially the monster cards and those kind of things. Even like short, cheeky sentences would do a lot for me in terms of world building. There is not much world building. It is a good challenge. It is a good theme. I personally want a little bit more of a narrative-rich experience, one that could be skippable for those who don't like that narrative-rich experience, because you can glance through that flavor text, but I want that flavor text. And that is, I would say, if I had a disappointment in this game, it is the lack of narrative depth. It's not what it promised to be. It promised to be a co-op with Euro-inspired bits and strategy, and it absolutely delivered that. But I sort of still, I'm looking at this cover and I just want you to tell me more as we play the game about the monster and what they're doing and what we're feeling. There's a couple cards where, for instance, the Chaos Show, where kind of pounds down and sends a shake through it, and you guys have to defend against hits happening to you. And I like those things, but I want to see more of those things even for the mundane pools. I want all of them to kind of have a little more flavor in that way too. So that's my pros versus my light cons and things that I was hoping to get out of this. But I think it's a great Kickstarter. I was really, really excited when he reached out and asked if I wanted to see it ahead of its launch. And I really am excited for their team with their Kickstarter ahead. If you have any other questions at all about the game, how it's played, my thoughts on the different monsters, anything like that, please put messages in the comments and I will get back to you guys. But this game is great. I'm excited for the team, and keep an eye out for it if co-op and meaty little bitey games are for you. Other than that, if you guys are interested and have the time, I hope that you'll either subscribe here or follow on Instagram or both. It does a lot to help me out. And thank you to everyone who over the past week has sent a lot of love my way. I had a pet pass away, and the amount of love and support from the internet was really, really impactful to me. So I appreciate you all. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you for the next video.